Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Science of Superpowers. I am so delighted to share with you today Dr. Pearlette Ramos. Hello, Pearlette. I say hi to you on video here. How are you?
Well, how are you today?
I am fabulous. I'm so glad you're joining us, folks. You are in for such a treat. We're going to get into this here, and Perletta is just amazing. So we're talking all about how Dr. Perletta Ramos captivates and compels us through stories. And of course, this is part of our Women's History feature. The Superpower Network celebrates Women's History Month and is proud to align with the 2023 theme of honoring the women who tell our stories. As more women endeavor to find their voices and share their experiences, we open pathways for others to follow. We love you, love each other. That's this big conversation this month is women who tell our stories. And as soon as I knew the theme, I knew the woman to talk to as it relates to compelling through storytelling, right? You heard last week how we create our worlds through storytelling, right? And we talked a little bit about how important it is that we pay attention to what types of stories we're telling and what we're telling in our stories, right? And so we're going to dive into that today when we hear all about Perletta and her amazing journey. But I'm just going to tease it for a minute here because we first want to hear Perletta. What are your superpowers and how are you using them for good?
I love that question. And I'm excited to be here on the first day of the month for the acknowledgement of women throughout history who have really claimed their power to make a difference in the world. And I would say I am tenaciously creative. I know that's two words, but I am tenacious and I am creative.
Oh, well, no doubt about that. This is, I have had the extreme honor of knowing this one. We met at a YWCA event here in Phoenix. So shout out to the local YWCA, a phenomenal organization doing great things. And Perletta was honored in their tribute event for the moves and the ripples and the waves that she makes in society in terms of change and just getting people to see we can do better, right? Like that's I always see Perletta like out in front, like do like we can do better, right? We will do better. We are going to do better. This is how we can do better. I'm doing better. You can do better with me, right? I think that's kind of how she shows up in my reality for me, and she inspires me to do that as well. And so Perletta, absolutely, you are creative. And one of the most creative things I've seen in a long time is your creative project around your journey with Mount Kilimanjaro. Would you love to share? I would love to hear you share from your words with our audience this beautiful journey into creating this documentary that depicts not just the depths of who we can be and are, right, but the ramifications of what has happened in society, some of the things that have occurred, how we can make change. I mean, real significant, like you want to talk about a mountain with some deep, 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 deep roots there. This is huge, and you're taking on this whole social change, social justice, social awareness. I don't need there's not even a word big enough, I think, for to encapsulate what you're doing here with this beautiful documentary of three extraordinary women. Would you share some of that story with us?
Oh, let me say, everyone is an extraordinary, we're all ordinary women, but we're extraordinary in our ordinariness. And so my desire with the film is to combine stories that touch us, that engage us, that inspire us. And I think our own individual stories are oftentimes inspiring, although we may not see our stories that way. And I know I didn't at first. It was really sisters pouring into me saying, wow, it's so inspiring. How did you do that? Well, I was like, really? I'm just being myself. And I think that's a part of what's so compelling about three extraordinary women. And so essentially, the film tells the story of three women who experienced trauma in their childhood. And each of the women found the wisdom in the experiences that they had. And she made it mean something about not herself negatively. She actually made it mean something empowering about herself and about what she wanted to do in the world. And so it's as much about being raised and reared in oppressive and violent environments as it is about claiming your personal power and how to use that power to make a difference in the world. And each of us tell the story as we're climbing Kilimanjaro with this idea that there's a personal Kilimanjaro or a challenge that we're all seeking to overcome, whether it be a divorce or financial challenges or raising children or trying to have it all, or some people suffer from mental health challenges or frankly, it's traumatic just living in the world because of all of the issues that we face collectively. And that's the collective Kilimanjaro. Like, how can we end inequity and structural racism and the bias that women face every day? And so the personal is centered on self-advocacy and self-determination, and it's intended to address this collaborative social advocacy, like you mentioned.
And it's beautiful. Oh my goodness, it's beautiful, folks. We're going to talk more about the film when we come back from this break. Perletta, before we go to break, where can people go to find out more about you and your beautiful work? Where do you want to send them?
Very simply, the website address is 3extraordinarywomen.com. 3extraordinarywomen.com is how they can
Beautiful.
find out about.
Beautiful. We'll have links there on the episode page over at superpowerexperts.com. And folks, if you want to know how to empower yourself, right, how to strengthen yourself energetically, vibrationally, all those levels we talk about, mental, emotional, physical, and vibrational connection into yourself and the world around you and others, make sure you get over to superpowerexperts.com and check out the work that we do over there. It's a great way to strengthen your walk as you walk into and look at and face and explore your own personal Kilimanjaro, which we'll get into here following the break. We're talking today on the Science of Superpowers with Dr. Pearlette Ramos, all about how she captivates and compels us through stories. We will be right back after the break. Awesome. We're back. You're listening to the Science of Superpowers, and we're here with Dr. Pearlette Ramos. And exploring and diving into, and we're going to dive even deeper into how she captivates and compels us through stories. And before the break, we shared with you this beautiful documentary that she has just birthed for. Like, you want to talk about artistry and creation, and that's what's so fabulous about it is you can lose yourself in the picturesque captivation of being there, right? Of feeling it, of the breath, of the glimpse, of the touch, of the tone, and it's the presence of awareness of being in there. And from that place, you were able to captivate these stories, right? And so we'll and from I'm just like fumbling all over the place because there's so much in that story that we want to capture. And and the artistry of the film is where what I find is the most captivating, because we're able to draw that artistry and that creativity through our own experiences. And when we're willing to look at our own experiences and our own journeys through that thread of creativity, we know ourselves differently, right? We know ourselves as somehow being connected into creation, right? What's been created, what created, so some kind of creative element, like how all of it came to be, right? The connection into nature allows us that beautiful journey. And you did such a great job of drawing that together, and allowing us to relate to it, like you said, of bringing forward even some of the more challenging times and seeing them through this lens of empowerment.
Mm.
Can you talk with us what that experience was like for you to, because this is your journey. Like, this isn't like some fairy tale story that you're telling. This is your journey through your existence, and that's no small matter to choose to share that with the world, and then to present it in artistry, right? And creative elements, and this rawness and vulnerability that says, I'm going to open myself up to you so you can see, so we can no longer pretend that we can't,
Mm.
right? How? What does that take? Like talk to us about that.
I just so adore you. Uh, well, because I think it takes a while to become yourself. And what you speak of is true. This I am sharing my story, and Terry and Tammy each share their stories as I'm going to say as wise older women. We're both, or I should say, we're all in our 50s and 60s. Terry is the eldest of the group, and she's headed towards 70. And at some point in your life, I think you come to some awareness of who you really are. That the experiences that you have, uh, we make meaning of them, and we can make meaning of them in a way that empowers us or disempowers us. And so because we know that stories engage us, when we're the narrator, when we're the conscious narrator, then we can tell about the thing that happened and not feel as though we're a victim of it, because we've done our inner work, we've healed ourselves, and we can see, oh, that led me, it was, even though it was difficult, like Tammy's mom was murdered in front of her when she was 6 years old. although that was incredibly difficult, this is what she made it mean. She made it mean that she needed to take care of herself. She made it mean that she needed to find in throughout her life the capacity to advocate not just for herself, but for others. Uh, Terry, who was 10 years old when Israel invaded Ramallah, where she grew up, saw violence around her and the oppression that was happening from her, her perspective. And she made it mean that she wanted to become an advocate and a human rights advocate for others. And a part of my background is basically I was raised in an abusive environment that turned to child abuse. And watching my mother be subjugated in our household was incredibly difficult. And in the very beginning, I made it mean something disempowering. I ended up quitting
Mm,
high school like my mother did. I ended up getting pregnant like my mother did. And so I was repeating the cycles of the trauma until I made it mean something different. And then when I became more aware, and that's a part of the goal of the artistry of this film is to authentically tell the stories of these three women. Like, this is what we struggled with, and we still struggle. And Tammy
mhm,
says it in the film, I still struggle with feeling like I'm not enough. And so this is a human journey. We all struggle, frankly. We all struggle in ways that others cannot see. And
mhm.
instead of putting on the face of, oh, things are perfect, even though we're quote unquote successful in life, you can be successful in life and be empty inside. And we each had, times where we have felt that way, and we still do. And we work through it. And so the power is of really being real, sharing that story with others so that we can say, me too. I have moments like this too.
Mhm.
And in sisterhood and community, then we can address our individual challenges that we have. But then my goal ultimately is this call to action where when we narrate our own story, we get to tell it and then we get to advocate our
Mhm.
thoughts and our feelings and use them from a source of power because we know that we're each determined individually and then collectively. When we raise our voices and we come together in action, inspired action, then we can transform these structures and systems that really disproportionately impact women and children.
So beautifully said. And let's not ignore the ongoing kind of systemic nature of ripple effects that have continued when at times when we weren't as aware as we are now, when we weren't as mission driven to make sure that multiple voices and all voices had a place, right. I'm kind of dancing around the fact that we're still talking about and cleaning up and really deconstructing on many levels the ramifications of some of very significant and intentional policies based around race and gender specifically that didn't just make it difficult then, right? Like this is not, I mean, these are, there's this beautiful developmental process we get to walk through, as you said, when you get to see what do we want to make the stories mean, right? In a way that we can look back and go, okay, not ideal, not ideal, and kind of look at what was my part in that, right? I remember in my first book I looked at I was looking at rape. I was raped when I was 16, I was raped when I was 32, and there was a huge difference in my life circumstances, but there was no difference about me. Like inside of me I was like, whoa, I've literally done nothing with this aspect of me. Despite all of this developmental journey, this piece is still there, right? Like, how did this happen? And I got to see and review all of the things that I had been complicit and complacent to that led to this, while not taking responsibility for the behavior of others, absolutely taking responsibility for myself. And in doing that, it put me in a position of understanding that process to see through a particular lens that just plain and simply, when we're talking about power dynamics and marginalization matters, we have to be willing to do some pretty extensive deconstruction because those roots go deep, because they've informed everything we think we know about ourselves and others. And it's almost impossible to see unless we're willing to go through it and look with a different lens. And that's an uncomfortable process for anybody individually, but particularly collectively, publicly, societally, when there's a lot of embarrassing stuff in there, right? A lot of real unpleasant stuff and a lot of real hurt. And so to be able to take that awareness of the self journey, and you're being very delicate with it, and it's we all have it, and there is an added layer where we get to look at things through societal lenses that say there was an amplification effect that occurred that far exceeds what any one of us was doing on our own, right? Because of the exponential impact where creators come together and people make things and things develop and then they take on a life of their own. And so this isn't simple what you've taken on. And so the Kilimanjaro depiction is really apt because it is deep, right? And that foundation is deep and the roots are deep. And what we see on the surface is really only the surface. And then when we're willing to sit with each other and depict things and have these conversations like you're encouraging us to do, right? Let's just sit down and talk, folks. Let's get to know each other and understand like we don't see the same world. We're not sharing realities. This is like parallel play in psychology when we were
Sure.
kids, right? Like it doesn't end. Like we don't actually know what your reality looks like compared to mine. The best we can do is come together and talk and say, "Oh, in my world, it kind of looks like this. What's that look like in your world?" Right? And kind of see if we can't figure out what this space between us looks like, and perhaps make some changes and clean up some things that have occurred so that we all stand a chance of informing that conversation moving forward. Perletta, I can't overstate how important I think the work is that you're doing in the world and the fact that you're willing to stand in front of people and share your stories and to highlight that of others to say this matters. Look, yes, indeed, I can see it. Here I am in the world, and here's how we can fix this. Right? You're not just standing there pointing fingers, you're willing to say these are solutions for fixing this. And well, how can we support what really is at the heart of this, which is that change. So no other little girls have to feel like that, have to walk themselves through that. They get to walk themselves through a whole new dream. We've seen this one over and over and over again. Can we make a new one? Right? Let's make new stories for those little girls. How can we support that?
So there are a couple things, and I want to speak to something I think I didn't really answer a little while ago, and that is the beauty of the film. I was very intentional in wanting to show the beauty of Kilimanjaro to help connect people to the planet and then to themselves, because nature, there's all this wonderful research that talks about the healing power of nature. And so many of us are disconnected because we don't get outside and we don't connect. And so one of the things that you can do is really to connect with yourself and to get in the great outdoors and to feel like it's home because it is. Um, there's another piece, and that is becoming more aware of the stories that we're receiving all the time about who we are. So many of us hold shame about the things that have happened to us, and we internalize that something's wrong with us. And so to really be mindful and to think about the stereotypes and bias and prejudice that's often found in movies that are actually harmful to the perceptions we hold about ourselves and about one another. Uh, Films can be used to vilify a person or groups of people to one extreme, but it also can be used to create heroines and heroes and icons and humanitarians, people that we hold dear. And so I think it's the awareness piece is, where do I listen to or watch a film, and what's the depiction of the person in that film? Because each of our lives hold complex characters and plots and morals and lessons, and the power of filmmaking is we see ourselves, maybe not the exact same thing that happened, but we see ourselves in the stories that we pay attention to. And so where do I, when I hear a story, whether it's negative or positive, where do I see the characters that are being depicted, and then where do I relate? Where do I focus in on the thing that happens or happened to me, and focus on where I was disempowered, as opposed to focusing on what I learned from that journey and how I have used that? Because I'm sure we have each had an experience that has happened, like you mentioned the two instances where you were raped, where you made it mean something.
Hmm.
And in the places where you may have made it mean, you couldn't trust others, or you couldn't trust yourself, or whatever you made it mean, You know, there's an opportunity there. And then where you made it mean, you know, there's something I need to do about X circumstance. There's something I need to do in order to take care of myself where I'm struggling, is the empowerment part of it. And so I think one of the other things that can be done is really the power of being self-reflective in your own life, and then to take that self-reflection out into the world to help others, because people are struggling every day in
Mm.
silence.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we talked a little bit on the last episode too about that connection of relating to all the characters, right? And so you take it even further into not just relating to the characters, but look at their journey. Have you seen that journey, right? I call it pulling on threads, right? I'll be like, oh, that's like, and it's like completely different genres. Nobody would tie those things together, but the threads are the same for me, right? Like they light up in the same way. There's this pattern to them for me, right? And that's the beautiful thing about being self-reflective and having that space inside of yourself to go to, where you do get taught in your way, you learn in your way, you get to know yourself in your way. And it's such a beautiful journey when you open up to that, and you really open up then to connecting with others, with the world, with the land, in beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ways. Richness, right? A real richness and fullness of the experience. So fabulous. I love the advice. Thank you so much. Folks, make sure that you're getting over to Pearlette's site and checking out the film. Pearlette, let's give them that address one more time.
Sure, it's 3extraordinarywomen.com.
Folks, go check it out. Go support her project. If you are driven by this, compelled by this, right, and you don't have stuff going on, creative spaces in your own, find out how you can connect into other people's creative projects, right? We're all going for momentum here, in the sense of like, hey, tell a friend, or get involved, right? How can you run discussion groups? How can you show the film? How can you? You know, it's easy to sit back and feel helpless, but folks, just start walking in a direction, and I tell you, the powerfulness just starts coming with it, right? So take some steps forward, see how you can help. And it just gets easier with each step that you take in that direction. If you want to know how to do that in a way where you feel calm and confident and strong and powerful, so that you can be involved with these things that you want to be involved with, and you can invoke change, get over to superpowerexperts.com and learn how to fortify yourself using our SIFA process. So energetically, you're strong going out into the world, right? You're like, yeah, I do know myself. I am here. I'm not perfect. I'm a hot mess, but that's okay because I love me, and I love my hot mess. And so I'm gonna just roll with it, right? And we'll all just do that together and figure it out along the way. All right. So get over, support Pearlette's work. And Pearlette, thank you so much for everything you are, everything you do, and particularly for sharing your time and your energy and your beingness with us here today.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here, to always be in your company, and to share a bit more about the film, Three Extraordinary Women.
Oh, well, thank you. And as a very personal thank you for lighting me up and inspiring me, and daring to just have crazy conversations that, who knew where they were going to take us, and here we are. So I honor that, and I treasure our relationship. Everyone out there, do your part, do what comes to you, get creative, express into the world in a way that makes you feel good. And we will see you back here next time. We've been talking all about how Dr. Pearlette Ramos captivates and compels us through stories as part of our feature here on National History, or Women's History Month. And until next time, folks, we love you, love each other. Goodbye for now.
Be tenacious. Be
Be
tenacious.
tenacious. I like that. Be tenacious. Love to you all.
My dear.